بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. I praise and thank Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to send countless blessings and salutations on Sayyiduna Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us the sincere intentions. In continuing some of the things that we were talking about yesterday, as we have a little time because we won't have post-Fajr reflections today. Our reader is a little under the weather. May Allah give her afiyah, insha'Allah ta'ala. Let us keep her in our dua. Insha'Allah ta'ala, that Allah will give her afiyah, insha'Allah. But one of the things we talked about Saturday at our Philadelphia gathering was history in relating to our Islamic knowledge in general, but particularly the creed. And I gave a homework assignment. Let me see, those who attended or listened, what was the homework assignment I gave you? See if people are listening. So those who heard online or were present, what was the homework assignment? Miriam Rose. She said, why you gotta call me out? Khadijah. Y'all was there. You were front row. Crickets. What was the homework? Good, Islam Muhammad. Good, Khadijah. So we said we wanted to get the well-known scholars around the world that were between the 12th and 13th centuries. Very important. So we said the mid 12th century, we could say, and you can use the whole 12th century, it would serve as a purpose. 12th and 13th century. So everyone can participate in this, right? I should put Hijri centuries so you'll follow it, right? That was the homework, right? To research and find out who were the well-known leading Sunni scholars between the 12th and 13th centuries, Hijri centuries. It's a very important project because history plays a big role in how you understand things. Your understanding of historic events, what occurred, will, right, determine how you understand and you view things and how you look at things. You know, uh, and I picked those 2 centuries for what purpose? Why did I mention them? I want to make sure y'all following me. So it's easy just to talk and people listen and you don't know what they're understanding. But when we engage back and forth, we get to understand what we're talking about. Why did we mention those centuries? For what reason? There was a reason why we picked those particular centuries. I'm engaging y'all. Why we picked those centuries. And we're supposed to have a pen and paper, so this should be easy because you should have wrote all this stuff down or you should have recorded it like we talked about. Good. Islam Muhammad's on fire, right? Because during that time was when Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who was the one who founded the Wahhabiyya movement, that's when he lived. Very important thing. That is when he lived. So if we looked at Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he lived from the years 1115 to 1206 AH, right? Very important figure, and you should know about history. Why? So we're talking about this. So he was born 1115. That's in the 12th century, the beginning of the 12th century. And he died 1206, which is the beginning of the 13th century. So that's when that movement, and remember, you're talking about mid 12th century because he's born in 1115. So his mission doesn't start till he's older. So you're talking going towards mid 12th century. What does the Islamic world look like at that time? Most of us have no clue. We just think what modern day propaganda tells you. Did Saudi Arabia look like what it looks like today? That's something to think about. Prior to the coming of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and his so-called reform of Islamic monotheism, Tawheed, who was existing? What were the scholars like there? Was his doctrine that he called to something that the majority of the Muslims agreed with or accepted, right? Something to think about, right? So now, historically, as Imam Genius so eloquently put, in that time, Saudi Arabia didn't even exist. A lot of people, you'll be shocked, wouldn't even know that. At that time, there was no such thing as Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia became known as Saudi Arabia even after the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. During his time, there was no such thing as Saudi Arabia. That was the beginning of the establishment of that Saudi kingdom, right? And that is a union between Muhammad ibn Saud and Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. That's historically a fact, right? There was no such thing as Saudi Arabia. As our brother Abdullah Isa, I think that's who put it, Abdullah Isa, follow him. Oh, this is going to be a beautiful conversation. Oh, y'all engaging. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. I love it. Y'all engaging. Good. We're going to get educated today. In that time, the Arabian Peninsula was the Eastern Province and the Western Province. The Western Province called Al-Hijaz, where Mecca and Medina is. The Eastern Province was Najd, right? Where Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab came from. There's going to be, so just historically, you're going to understand some things, right? So that's why if you ever hear some say, they won't say Wahhabi, some will say Najdi, because that's where he came from, the area of Najd, which was the eastern province of Arabia in that time, right? So Hijaz, particularly, even the Najd, right? What were the scholars of the Najd practicing during his time? That's a research project, right? The majority of the scholars of Najd, were they having his ideas? Hijaz, which we're really concerned with, Mecca and Medina, because of the Prophet's mosque, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Kaaba, right? What was it like? Now, so in the 12th century, a way that you get an understanding of the Islamic world, what it was like, by the famous, well-known scholars, right? Because who were the leading scholarly figures among the Muslims in those times, right? So you get two things you should understand. Number one, prior to Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, so you can go all the way to really the 12th and 11th centuries, but just for the purpose of the 12th, before he became known, so the mid 12th century, what about the early 12th century, and what about the 11th century? Who are the main figures? It's important to understand this, because when you understand this, then you get to understand how the people understood the deen. So let's just take Mecca and Medina, the Hijaz area. One of the things that we learn about in Islam is chains of narration. And chains or narrations are called what in Arabic? What do we call the chain of narration? This is important stuff. Let me take that out. What do we call the chain? Isnad, right? The chain of narration, isnad. And the claim of those followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab today is that they are who? The people of what they call themselves, al-Azamihim, that they are the people of what? Besides Tawheed, they are the people of, they call themselves. People of Hadith, right? They claim we're Ahlul Hadith, right? The people of Hadith. So to be the people of Hadith, you should know asanid, chains of narration. And by chains of narration, they're never going to be broken. So therefore, you're always going to have an understanding of time, right? You're always going to have an understanding of time and the people of the time. Because through the chains of narration, that is how our religion is conveyed, right? Through the chains of narration, that's how our religion is conveyed. I'm going to show you some things. So if we want to know who were the figures that were the big figures, all we have to do is know our asanid, our chains of narration, right? And if we know our chains of narration for our religious knowledge and our religious texts, we'll know in each time who were the scholars of that time, because they would be the ones that are mentioned in many of our asanid. Do you understand that? Is that clear? This is going to be a good one. I'm telling you, when you hang around Imam Genius, he puts things in your mind that just be like, wow, this guy. And he really, really got my wheels turning. May Allah reward him. So from the chains of narration, that's who we get the knowledge from, especially in hadith. So let's stay with hadith, right? Let's stick with hadith first, because that's going to give us the knowledge of hadith through the people of hadith. They should know the knowledge of hadith, right? Simple. Tell you. Question. During the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who was from Najd, when he was born and when he was growing up as a kid, who was the greatest scholar of hadith in Mecca, in Hijaz area? Among the greatest, the foremost scholar in hadith in Mecca during his time. Who was it? Rebuilding Amir. You're going to enjoy this. Take notes. You're going to have some fun. That's a question. No. I told y'all. Let's see if y'all taking notes. Who was the foremost scholar in hadith in Mecca during the childhood of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab? So when he was growing up, the biggest scholar in hadith in Mecca was alive at that time. Who was it? I told y'all. Imam Muslim's from the Salaf. I'm not just going to give you all the answers because we discussed it in class. That means you're not taking notes. So when I repeat, don't get angry with me, because if I give it to you and you forgot it, that means I must repeat. And as they say, fil i'ada ifada, if we repeat, there's a benefit. No, remember, I told you we got to stop just listening to lectures. We got to start learning. We have to study. We have to memorize. No. I told y'all. Come on. It was in the second session when I mentioned it, because Imam Genius had my mind going. There you go. Islam Muhammad. Right. Al-Hafidh Abdullah ibn, not as-Salim, ibn Salim al-Basri. So Al-Hafidh Abdullah, everyone write this name down, Ibn Salim al-Basri. Allahu Akbar. Right? He lived 1045 to 1134 AH. Everyone write their name down. Right? Al-Hafidh Abdullah ibn Salim al-Basri. Right? Very, very important figure. This is going to be a serious, nice research project. We're going to show you some things, right? So in Mecca, during the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, right, the foremost scholar in hadith, whom everyone would go to and learn from, was Al-Hafidh Abdullah ibn Salim al-Basri. So if you made Hajj or Umrah in that time, there is no doubt when you go to Mecca, you want to attend his lessons. Now, I want you to get a couple things with this. So he's in Hijaz, and Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is a kid in Najd. Subhanallah, I want you to think about this. This is so important. Anyone who comes, any scholar from around the world who wants to learn hadith, who wants to learn religious knowledge, when they come to Mecca, they're going to see him. Okay. Why is that significant? Okay. What was his methodology? You know, they say his manhaj. Samira, who took good notes in class, may Allah reward her, he was Shafi'i in fiqh, Ash'ari in Aqidah, and he was a Sufi. Y'all got that? The leading scholar of Mecca, with no contention, no one would disagree with that. The leading scholar in Hijaz, in Hadith. There was another one that was at his same time. I'll tell you about him later, in Hijaz. And we're going to talk about this. It's very important. But the leading, by far, the leading scholar of Hadith in that time in Mecca was Abdullah ibn Salim al-Basri, who was a Shafi'i in fiqh. Shafi'is. That's just a little plug for the Maliki people. No, right. He was a Shafi'i. He was Ash'ari in Aqidah. And he was Sufi. And in that time, he was the most venerated, sought after scholar in Mecca, in Hijaz. Anyone who comes, they got to learn from him. Like it's an honor to learn from him. Keep that in mind. This is, go fact check. Don't just listen to me, go fact check. Let me tell you about this scholar and to show you his status, right? He was known as Musnad. Well, I should pay this. We're not speaking Arabic. The Musnad of Al-Hijaz. So you got to learn some terms because we're talking hadith, right? He was known as the Musnad of Al-Hijaz. What is a Musnad? That is the person who collects the narrations of hadith with their chains back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he's the Musnad of Hijaz. That means if you go to Hijaz and you want to learn the narrations of hadith and chains of narration, you got to go to him. He's the Musnad of Al-Hijaz. So that means there are scholars of hadith. Now he's a little bit more than that. He's the Musnad. In fact, he was given the title look at this. Ajib, amazing, right? He was given the title Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith. Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith. Okay, Fatima, what is the definition of Musnad? Musnad is the one who narrates the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ with continuous chains of narration. That means he gathers all of these chains of narration to where he becomes the center of it. Like when you want to learn about chains of narration, about the hadith, you go to him. He's a Musnad. That means he knows the hadith and their chains of narration. So he was Amirul Mu'mineen. Now, Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith, it means like the commander of the faithful. You know, like Umar was Amirul Mu'mineen, and Uthman and Ali. In Hadith, right, he was given the title Amirul Mu'mineen Hadith, which is among the highest, or let me say, the highest title of hadith that a scholar is given. Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith. There were not many who were given that title. Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith, right? There are not. So listen, Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith. Who got that title? Imam Ahmed, Imam al-Bukhari. There were people who gave them titles. Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith. So this is like the highest title in hadith knowledge you can get. Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith. To the point that some of the scholars, they wrote poems just talking about the Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith in different times. In this time, he was the Amirul Mu'mineen Hadith, and he's among them, right? So he's a Hafiz. So once you say Amirul Mu'mineen, no need to say Hafiz, because the Hafiz, so you know, the Hafiz of Hadith needs at least 100,000 Hadith with the chain of narrations by memory. So if we're talking about Al-Hafiz, we're talking about 100,000. When you're talking about Amirul Mu'mineen, you're way over that. Over 300,000. Even some narrations way, way, way up there. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hadith with their chains of narration. He was Amirul Mu'mineen fil Hadith. So I just want you to understand who we're talking about. To give you his status in hadith, we're just talking about. To show you how special he was, he recited the entire Sahih of al-Bukhari twice inside the Kaaba. from cover to cover. He used to have sessions inside the Kaaba of reciting Sahih al-Bukhari, and he did it twice. So you know his status, right? He's inside the Kaaba reading hadith, reciting hadith al-Bukhari inside the Kaaba. I'm just trying to give you his rank, right? Also, it was him who hand wrote the entire Musnad of Imam Ahmad. Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Now don't mix Musnad with Musnid. Don't mix them up, right? The Musnad of Imam Ahmad has around 30,000 hadith. It's bigger than Bukhari and Muslim put together. Like 30,000 hadith. He wrote it by hand, and he made several copies that he gave to his son to deliver to Medina and to Egypt. Special copies of the Musnad. And the scholars of hadith, they said, if it wasn't for Al-Hafiz Abdullah bin Salam al-Basri, we might have lost the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. Think about that. They said, if it wasn't for him, we might have lost the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. Right? So I want you to think about that. That's his rank. Now, compare him, just so you get a comparison, to Al-Albani. No comparison, right? Right? Compare him, who was the scholar in that time of hadith, to what these Wahhabi people are trying to give us today in Nasiruddin al-Albani. All right, let's compare. So you get, hey, things are known by their opposites, right? Things are known by their opposites. All right, let's do this. Let's do a quick, we black. Let's do a quick verses. Verses. And let's give him check. We don't have to be disrespectful, right? All right. Let's do something. Right? Let's do something. All right, y'all gonna judge. Y'all ready? Why is it delayed? All right, we're gonna do a versus real quick. Y'all ready? Y'all the judge. We're gonna put their hits, right? Al-Hafiz Abdullah bin Salim al-Basri versus Nasiruddin al-Albani. طيب. Abdullah bin Salam was in Hijaz. Al-Albani eventually was in Hijaz. And that's who they promote, right? Shafi'i, Ash'ari, Sufi. Al-Albani, La Madhabi, Salafi, Wahhabi in creed. enemy of Tasawwuf, right? Totally different. Shafi'i, Ash'ari, Sufi, right? La Madhabi, Salafi, Wahhabi in creed, no madhab. That's Al-Albani. Al-Hafiz, Abdullah bin Salim, Al-Basri. Al-Hafiz, memorize over 100,000 hadith with their chains of narration, reached the level of Amir al-Mu'mineen fil hadith. Al-Albani, not even 100 hadith with their chains of transmission memorized. Completely unbroken chains from memory. None. That's not. He himself said, I am from research, not from memory. He himself said that. Not Amin saying it. Al-Albani said that. I am not a memorizer. I research. So he doesn't have chains of narration by heart. That's why in his books, you don't find chains of narration. He don't have it. As they say, faqidu shay la yu'ti, the one who doesn't have a thing can't give it. So if you study all the books of Al-Albani, and I have them, so can't tell me they exist, his books are free of chains of narration, except that he reads books, and we can go into that story later, and how he finds out about narrators, not from his mind. That's something he's researching, right? Now, in our time, that's a great thing. So I don't want to act like his work didn't have any value, especially in our time when stuff has become so deteriorated. He did some good things. But when we compare him to real hadith scholars, he's not even in the game. Over 100,000, not even 100. Not even 100. When Al-Hafiz Abdullah bin Salim would narrate, he would do what is called imla. That means he narrate from his mind with the chains of narration. He just go. Al-Albani, with books, scholars counted over 1,200 mistakes in hadith narrations and grading of hadith. Mistakes. To the point that some scholars said about him, if one wanted to write a book, he could write a book called Al-Albani Refutes Himself. That's Abdullah bin Salim al-Basri. Musnid in hadith. He's the foremost scholar in the world in chains of narration in his time, right? If you study hadith and you study from our time, chains of narration, undoubtedly, if you study well, his name is going to be mentioned in many of the chains of narration, especially the chains that go through Mecca and Al-Bukhari and the Musnad of Imam Ahmed and other books. If you go and study chains of narration, which exists because Sunnis still have that, you're going to find his name in those chains of narration, right? When you want to study, you're going to find those chains. Al-Albani, no chains, nothing. All right. Abdullah bin Salim was a master in Shafi'i fiqh. In fact, they called him the third of the two sheikhs of the madhab. So when we talk about the sheikhs, we're talking about Nawawi and Ar-Rafi. They called him the third of them. Subhanallah. That shows his rank in fiqh. Al-Albani, too many mistakes in al-fiqh. He said, it's an uncanny, right? Too many mistakes in fiqh. With chains of narration, this great scholar came up with that with all his knowledge. That at tasawwuf is a part of the deen. This one, who had none of these connections, who had not meeting none of the great scholars in the time, knocks out tasawwuf. I want you to think of something. He's the foremost scholar. That means the people coming to him, they know he's a Sufi. I didn't even go into what their sessions look like. I'm going to discuss that too. Right? I'm going to discuss those things. Right? What the sessions look like when they had their sessions and their gatherings. Because you want to see tasawwuf, their sections of hadith were sections of tasawwuf. You're talking about dhikr and gatherings, that's what they did. I'm going to show it to you, right? So I'm giving you just a verses. All right, just from listening to some. This one, a scholar in the Arabic language. They said he was in Arabic language, the Sibawayh of his time. In Balaga, eloquence, in Arabic language, he was the Taftazani of his time. Anyone who knows about Arabic language, Sibawayh, Ibn Malik, they say he was like them in his time. You may know Arabic language. No one says that about Al-Albani. He wasn't even an Arab with good Arabic language. I'm talking about scholars. I'm not talking about myself. So we're not talking about me. We're talking about scholars who are claiming, because here what they'll say today, right? See, you can't give this. Here we'll say, he'll say, they'll say the greatest scholar, which is false because they don't know scholars. The greatest scholar of our time is Al-Albani, which is a joke. But nevertheless, that's the claim. And the claim is, this is the bar of scholarship. That's the claim. And that's why you have his book spread all around. So then you wiped out as if this was Mecca and Medina, and this is what is taught in the Hijaz. Well, they don't say Hijaz in Saudi Arabia. Well, let's go to when, before there's Wahhabi people came, what it was like, what the scholars of Ahl Sunnah were like. Right? That's a comparison. It's to give you the differences. Now, just for fun purpose, just for fun, I gave you a quick example of verses. Who wins this verses? Al-Hafiz Abdullah bin Salim al-Basri or Nasruddin al-Albani? I leave it to the crowd. Who wins this verses? We need the votes to come in. Subhanallah. And I ain't even begin to really warm up with him, right? I just gave an example. So here, what I was talking about, what Imam Naim was talking about, I ain't finished. That's just one scholar. I'm not finished. I ain't even start, right? Because we're going to do this research. Right? Here's the point. Because what is being shoved down our throat as an authority? Al-Albani. So we would think, if no one told us difference, that this is a scale. That's how we would think. Am I right or wrong? The way Al-Albani, for instance, is being pushed by the Wahhabiyya, by the so-called Salafiyya, you would think that these great scholars who are Ash'ari, who are Sufi, who follow the madhab, didn't exist. Wouldn't you? Let's be fair. Since we want to be fair, be fair. If the way they are telling you the religion, you would think that these great scholars didn't even exist. You wouldn't know nothing about them. You wouldn't know nothing about them, nor what Islamic scholarship looks like. You would have no idea. To the point, when you say if a hadith is authentic or not, you have to say it was authentic by Al-Albani. That's how they make you say it, as if he was an authority. When he wasn't, as the scholars mentioned, like as Suyuti mentioned in his Alfiya, that to grade the hadith, you need to be a hafiz. And Al-Albani wasn't a hafiz, so he doesn't even count according to the scholars of hadith. And for sure, if I know that, don't you think they know that? Listen, for sure, if I know that, don't you think they know that too? Think about that. I'll repeat that. For sure, if I know that, it's definitely known that they know that. So what are they hiding from you? Because they know. I know. So I know you know. Because that's their field. They are the people of hadith. So they definitely know. For some lowly guy like me to discover it, what does that tell you? Is this a conspiracy or not? And that's what Imam Naim raised the point. He said they stripped our Aqidah, not only our whole Islamic practice, in the three fundamental principles of al-Aqidah, al-Fiqh, and al-Tasawwuf. They hijacked that stuff and replaced it with half-baked so-called scholars, and then hid from us what real scholars look like. So we don't even know what they look like. We don't have nothing to compare, right? Nothing at all. And then tell us all this is bid'ah and misguidance, when the great scholars whom they knew existed, know their histories, were just like the people today of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, but you hid that from the people. So think about that. Think about what I'm saying. Think about that. And as Imam Naim says, Man gashana falaysa minna. Whoever deceives us is not from us. That's how he started his lecture Saturday. Whoever deceives us is not from us. Now that's just one scholar. I'm not finished. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you some more, right? Because when we turn on the lights, you can't claim walking in darkness. We're going to turn on the lights so you can see, right? Now, you have to ask yourself a question. I'm just talking about Medina and Mecca, right? If this was the leading scholar in Mecca. We talked about him, and I could go on and on. Let me tell you, wait a minute. Let me tell you about him. How diligent they were in worship with all that knowledge, right? You know what his weird was? Weird. Show you he's a Sufi. His weird, right? Which is his daily devotions. Daily devotional worship. Right? That's his weird. Right? So that's a weird. That's Sufi term. You hear weird. What's your weird? Right? The Sufis have weirds. Guess what his weird was? He used to read 10 juz of the Quran every day from heart. Every day, he would read 10 30ths of the Quran from memory every single day. They would say privately, publicly, silently, and loud every day. 10 juz. In Qiyam al-Layl, his night prayer, so he made night prayer, he would do 2 juz at night prayer in Salat every night. That was his worship. Every 3 days, he would complete the Quran. Every 3 days. Every night, 2 juz. We'd be in Tarawih crying about 1 juz. Every night. And he did that even when he was 80 years old. He died at 85. He was at 80 still doing that. So he wasn't just a knowledgeable person. He was a man of worship too. Right? He was a man of worship like that. So you want to talk about following the way of the Salaf? That's the Salafis. With all that knowledge, he also had piety to match that. That's the scholars we're talking about. They were grave worshippers. That's the ones whom Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab came and waged war against. People like them. It has a different context now, doesn't it? These are the people he called grave worshippers and worshiping their sheikhs and kuffar. These are the ones. He has a huge commentary on Sahih Bukhari, and I'm going to share stuff from it for you so you can see his belief. So you won't say, oh, Amin said, no. I'm going to show you his books and show you what he believed and what he said. Everything that Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab came later and called shirk and kufr and bid'ah, that great scholar practiced. You follow what I mean? See, it's easy when someone tell you stuff you don't know. It's easy when they just tell you stuff and you don't have fact checking. Go fact check what I said. I just gave you a bunch of stuff. Go look. Go check it out. Go check it out. So and this is right. This is during the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. This is not before or after. Nah, he was alive when this man was existing. And the likes, because he wasn't the only one like this. I'm going to show you. That's why I said we're going to do this history work. He wasn't the only one like this. Right? These people, that's how they were. He called them kuffar, blind followers of madhabs, grave worshippers. That's who he waged war against. I want you to see the type of people he considered kuffar and mushrikun. That's what he was talking about, them. There's some stuff to think about. And I remember when I was coming up, they used to talk about the crucifixion of so-called crucifixion of Jesus. And they said the greatest story ever told. On the Islamic version, that Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab was a reformer of Islamic monotheism is the greatest story ever told. Is the greatest story ever told. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Any questions about what I discussed so far? I'm gonna stop here, but this is part one. Count it, because I'm gonna come tomorrow, and I'm gonna build. We're gonna do that homework together. So let's really get the picture, because sometimes when you don't understand what's being said, you don't understand the game that's been ran on you, right? It's easy to tell you stuff when you don't know. But now, let's learn to research. Let's learn to fact check. That's something that can be easily checked, right? But I'm going to show you more of these connections, so you get to see the Muslim world in the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, when he came with his innovations and who he targeted with those innovations. Because I don't think a black man especially, and listen why I say that, because we know how they changed history and told us we was walking around as savages in Africa, running around naked. And they'll tell us about Timbuktu, great men like Uthman Dan Fodio, and they didn't tell us all that stuff. Y'all were savages in Africa running around and not knowing, go sit down. Hold on one second. That's what they told us. So, we were 3/4 of a man or 1/3 of a man, however the kind of crap they got going on, right? So we know how it is for somebody to just lie to us, right? And Christopher Columbus discovered America, and we know all these type of lies. Now, how about when those lies are given to you in the name of Islam? Think about that. When those same lies, similar, with a religious context, right? Think about that. Religiously, you've been lied to. And here's the point. I can see if you just gave me all the stuff and then said, choose, you've wiped out history and then rewrote history and gave it to me. And told me this is the way of the Salaf. Stop. This is the way of the Salaf. And you wiped out all this stuff. Wiped it out. And wait a minute. I want to share something with you. They're in the process, the Saudi ruling family is in the process of rewriting Islam again. You know that, right? Thanks to Donald Trump. They're in the process of rewriting Islam again. And if people are not knowledgeable and explain the next generation going to have another version of Saudi Islam, a whole new version that's going to wipe out the version that they destroyed Ahl Sunnah with in terms of falsifying the information. They're in another mode. They have this 2030 project. Islam going to look totally different according to them, right? It's going to be worse than what they, but this is what's going on. So for us, we can't allow that to happen. That's their problem. But we can't do that. Absolutely not. So go ahead. I'll take a few of your questions. Please keep it related to what I'm talking about. Don't branch me all over the place. Is everything that I said clear? Any questions about what I mentioned that may not be clear? I know this is a lot of stuff. And I know for some of us, this is all new things. But this was, all this came from Imam Naim. Had it not been for Imam Naim, I wouldn't have went down this road. Not like I wouldn't. He made some serious points that like, whew, my mind just, while he was talking, my mind was running. I was like, this guy, man. He made some strong points. And all this is to support what he said. That we've been given GMA, genetic modified Aqidah. Genetically modified Aqidah. I think that's how you say it. Is that how you say it, Imam Naim? And then when that was one thing he said, yeah. That was one thing he said that stood in my mind. And then the second thing he said was that we didn't only get stripped of our culture and our religion, but most importantly, we got stripped of our Aqidah. And then they also came from the back door. When we got it together, they came through the back door and gave us Wahhabism. And so that even though we remain Muslim towards in our mind, we have a corrupt Aqidah. Because when you study the history of Wahhabism, that was support from the British, from those who were enemies of Islam. That's a whole nother discussion, right? That's a whole nother discussion. So somebody got to speak up. This is all historical facts, what I'm saying. So this is nothing, none of this is my opinion. It's all facts. Nothing I said has an opinion base, zero. It's all clear, abundantly clear facts that can be checked. Nothing I said is from my own, wild imagination. All this stuff can be checked. It is all documented, well documented. Now, here's the funny thing. When you point out all this stuff, you know what they'll say? May Allah have mercy. He had mistakes in Aqidah. But I can't, if you don't have mercy on me, I'm a bid'ah, man of bid'ah, hang me out to dry. But the great scholar who had more reason to know than me, may Allah have mercy on him. May Allah break my back, but may Allah have mercy on him. He made mistakes in Aqidah. He way more knowledgeable than me, but may Allah have mercy on him. We common people, and I don't mean personally me, I mean us, we get, may Allah break his back. Oh man, you can't make this stuff up. Seriously, this guy's a Hafiz, Arabic language, master of Quran, have the same belief for me, spreading it all around the world. May Allah have mercy on him. Me, break my back. Oh my goodness. You can't make it up. You can't make this stuff up. But we're just beginning. This is just an introduction to the information we're going to give you over the next week. I think we can go all the way up to, we have to start the new year with the new Muslim series. So I think we can go from here, all of December, just nailing it. Let's use this last month from now to December to really, really dig deep in these issues. Right? Hey, Muti, you've never spoken a clearer truth. Now to understand why you have love for books. Get them now before they destroy them as a proof against the GMA, GMD movement. You got it, pal. Now you want to know why the masjid is filled up with books? This is why. You see it. Why? Because they will change the deen on you. And then if they get power, what do the first thing they do? Burn books. Get rid of the books. Kill scholars and burn books. Kill scholars, burn books. It's the first thing they do when they conquer a place. Go study the history of Wahhabism in the Arabian Peninsula. Count how many scholars were killed. See, you just hear people killed. You don't take in consideration that a lot of those people who were killed were scholars. And you don't take in consideration the books they destroyed that existed. They went around the Muslim world destroying libraries, burning them. Yes, it's documented. This is true facts. So you're right. And I say that all the time. And I've seen it. And let me give you the other thing they're doing today. They alter the books. They take stuff out. They change it. They fabricate. So you got to have even more than one copy, because if it was produced by them, most likely they took some stuff out. And you got to remember, before books become published, they're manuscript, and they play with the manuscripts. I have a whole book, which is a thick book, maybe like 600-700 pages, that just deal with the Wahhabis altering and playing with the books of the scholars. It just goes from point to point to point, just showing you where they changed the books. The book is about maybe 600-700 pages. Thick. And it just go point for point. Book, this book, look, this edition. Wahhabis published, took out this, took out that. It's serious stuff going on. So we'll stop here. Did I get any questions? I did. Let me look back. I was talking. I wasn't looking. Please write all this stuff down. I'm going to ask you again so you don't forget. Because to follow me, you're going to have to learn a little bit about chains of narrations, and I'm going to teach you. So we'll take it step by step, but you have to memorize these things because you won't be able to follow. Once I start talking, you're going to get lost, right? So you have to memorize or write down well. Names, dates, methodologies, all this what I covered. So go back and look at the video several times, write it down, because as I get more advanced, you're going to, when I mean, and not advanced, just giving you more information. If you don't memorize things, when I start spreading out, going across, you're going to get lost, right? Because I'm going to move around the world. So I was talking about Mecca. I'm going to go to Yemen. I'm going to go to Syria. I'm going to go to Egypt. I'm going to go to Pakistan, India, the subcontinent. I'm going to go into Africa. I'm going to move all around the world. So you have to follow or you're going to get lost, right? It's very important. It's going to be a lot of research. So we're talking about, we're going to stay in a time, but we're going to go up, we're going to go down, we're going to go all around the world. So you can get a picture of the world when this Wahhabi thing came about. And then once you get that picture, you know, in summary, they changed the religion and considered all the Muslims as idol worshippers and kafirs, if you want a summary of it. But that's just me telling you. Now, when I show you that, that's a whole nother story. It's easy for me to just say it. You're like, oh, okay. But once I show you how they did it and give you factual information and scholars and connections and show you, then what I'm doing, Amir, let me answer your question. What I'm doing to you, you can't find this stuff in one book, unfortunately, right? Because this is Islamic sciences too. So I don't even know of a book in English that even talk about this stuff, right? All these are Arabic resources. But by me pointing it out, you can what you call it? You can narrow your search, would make it easy. And then there is the possibility that you can find some of this information in English, right? Because all this stuff is Arabic, right? To talk about what I'm talking about, I don't know where you can find this stuff in English. I don't know, honestly. Not to put it together like that, unfortunately. And I think that's by design too. There is, I mean, the resources to I don't know, unless someone knows something. I don't know. I'm not a good researcher on the internet, so I wouldn't really know to how would you get all this stuff in English. All of it. Some of it you can piece it together when someone guiding you. But if it's Arabic, it's easy. I could just open books in Arabic and show you with no problem, right? But in English, it's going to be a little difficult. And I think that's by design, to make it so you don't, right? You don't find the truth, so that, right? Because there's a bigger conspiracy in the English language. I think you should realize that, right? There's a much bigger conspiracy, right? Because some things, but we'll do it. We should group research. It's a bunch of us. Some of us we have access to stuff that some people got skills that others don't got. Like some of y'all may be good internet searchers and y'all know how to pull up. When I gave you the information, you might find stuff that I never looked at, right? Because one of the things, like for me, when I'm researching, I don't look in English. I research in Arabic. So that's a problem in and of itself. So I really don't even know what's available in English because I don't research in English. I research in Arabic. So it's a problem for me, right? That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just don't know, right? And it may exist. Somebody may have wrote articles and did the same thing, but because I don't research in English, I don't know, right? But I gave you the information. Now you have things to go research. You can bring your research back. Say, look what I found. Oh, shukran, I didn't know it, right? Like, honestly, I wouldn't have done this like this and what I'm getting ready to do if it wasn't for Imam Naeem. My mind wasn't even thinking about this stuff like that. Not like this, even though I knew it and I knew it exists, but it wasn't something that I even thought would be relevant to most of us, right? I didn't think about it at all, right? But when he said what he said, a light bulb went off in my mind. I was like, wow. But that's because Imam Genius is Imam Genius. Right? Like it's like y'all know who Imam Genius is, right? That's Imam Naeem Abdullah. Right? You're right. Dr. Sabir, I tell him all the time, man. We always talk about this. I'm not a writer, but I'm a researcher. I can't I didn't I'm not a writer. I didn't even graduate high school. I'm not a writer, right? I don't have that skill, right? But I can research. I'm a good researcher. I can find all the information. I can explain it. I can give it to you. Now you just write it, right? And that's what Imam Genius is good at. He writes. I don't write, right? Everybody got different skill sets. But together, when we put all our skill sets together, right? So I'll give you an example. So let me give you. I have two. I'm gonna show y'all something to show you importance of teamwork, right? So say whatever weakness I have in the Arabic language, right? Saying I have a lot of weaknesses, right? Just like I have weaknesses in English. So if I have weaknesses in English, I'm not a writer, right? I can't edit. I can't, do all the proper punctuation, and that ain't my thing, right? I talk in Ebonics. That's not my thing, right? But we got Imam Genius, and we may have others among us, right, who are good writers or good researchers in English. They do their part. I'll do my part. Say my weaknesses in Arabic. I got two young boys that I helped raise, right? They're men now, but they were young boys when they came to me. They're excellent in Arabic. So know what I do? I'll sit with them. We read. Now, they're not researchers like me, but they're good Arabic readers. So I'll sit them down, read the book. And then as we're reading, I'm making points. I tell them, we read this book, go to this book, write this down. And they're good at organizing in Arabic and putting things together, making charts. They're young kids. They're good with computers. They're not kids no more. They're grown men, but they're like my boys, right? So they can do all that. At the end of the day, when we put all that together, boom, we have a crazy research department. When you have a research department, not a research individual, right? You have a bunch of people together. Everybody got different skill sets, right? So for them, they have skills that I don't have, and I have skills that they don't have. Imam Genius got skills that I don't have, and I got skills he don't have. And some of you got skills. When we put all that stuff together, we can fix things. It can't be about ego, though. We all got to humble ourselves, right? And whoever's good at one thing, let them do that. And whoever's not good at it, don't do it. You do your part, right? That's all we have to do. At the end of the day, we want to have a better future for our children, our offspring, right? But we got to do that now, right? Like, so it would be hope that our kids, no way they would be Wahhabis. It can't happen, right? I mean, in terms of what will be available for them, right? They're going to be they have too much, which we didn't have. Their library alone it will be like crazy. We didn't have that coming up. We was reading 5%er books and Ansar books and not Final Call, Muhammad Speaks, and that's where we were at, right? At that time. Now we at a whole nother level, right? And the children will be way further than us if we do our job, right? Oh, mashallah, that was a mouthful today. Let me make sure I got any questions that I didn't miss. I am going up. Let me go down. Does Al-Hafiz Abdullah have any work translating to English? No, not that I know of. I would love to see something, but not that I know of. He has books. He has a big, maybe 18 volumes, 17 volumes, commentary on Sahih al-Bukhari. I'm going to share it with you because I got to make some points. Uh, and yeah, and then when you study uh, books of hadith, narrations, and scholars and books of history related to biographies, you're going to discover a lot. But all that stuff is in Arabic, right? Uh, So we have a lot to translate. If even if someone was in that business, you can make a life doing that. If you were translating real Sunni books and scholars, that's a lifetime journey. If someone was great in Arabic and great in English and was really had, but that's why we need to support research. Like I'm telling you, we got to stop being stingy for our own good. Like we should have people that we support that are dedicated to this work. It's important. Like we financially support them. Translators, researchers, people that study in Arabic to become better so we can have more access. Because one person will get burned out doing all this stuff. But when you got groups of people doing it and they all working together with a common cause, you get a lot done. But we need to support our own success. Uh, I'm just looking for questions. Allah. I don't want to leave nobody's question out if I can. Allah. Yes, yes, Khadija, this is true. Oh, that's Sayyid Hadi. That's GMA, GMD. That's Imam Naeem. No, Sister Samira. Uh, she said genetically modified Aqidah and genetically modified Deen. That's what Wahhabism is. So that refers to Wahhabism. Did the Wahhabis change the Arabic of the Quran? Not that I know of. That would be a little bit too much. And if they did, I don't know anything about it. I doubt it. I highly doubt that one. But stranger things have happened. Allah. I read something a while ago when Iran said they wanted to destroy Saudi Kingdom. I was so upset. Is this the reason why they want to destroy the Saudi? Everybody wants the Saudi government to go. Iran may have another reason, but in general, if America doesn't support Saudi Arabia, they will be gone within 2 hours. if America just pulled out the West and you on your own, I don't think they would last, like not without exaggerating. I don't think they would last a week. Uh, but now they got all these weapons that America brought, so maybe it might take a little bit longer. But they're in power because of the West. Other than that, they wouldn't be there. The West has been supporting them since their inception. And the West has a reason they don't want Islam to spread. That's just the facts. I think we're done. And all the questions. Uh, and I think I'm done. And no more questions. I got everything. I think. Uh, this is true. Listen, don't let Arabic be an excuse for you to do research. We have the technology where there's some bad aspects, there's some good things because it give you access. You just got to research, right? You have the world in your hand with this phone, and you just got to know how to search. And if you have teachers guiding you and pointing you to things, like I said, we got to get to really studying. And once we get to really studying, this stuff is easy. It's not that hard, right? And whatever weaknesses we have, excuse me, see, I got weaknesses. It's not weaknesses we got, weaknesses we have, right? But whatever weaknesses or deficiencies we have, there's others among us who don't have those deficiencies. And if we cooperate with one another, we can fix the problem. So it's when we on ego time that it makes it difficult, right? Right? I'll give you an example. I have a Wahhabi friend. He's a friend of mine. He has a library similar to mine. In fact, we be talking about whose library is biggest, right? But you know one thing? He don't teach what's in his library. That's a problem, right? And when I say he's my friend, I'm talking about when we put the religious stuff aside, which what I mean, we realize you Wahhabi, I'm Sunni, Ashari, Sufi. So all right, we got that. But we black and we cool and we move on, right? We ain't gonna beat each other up, right? But his library is thorough. And he got some of his library from me. I mean, we all right. But he don't teach what's in his library. He hides what's in his library. He got the books, but they pick and choose. The book is right there. Why didn't you tell the people what you got in your library? He don't. Right? And he would go around. I mean, that's just, but he believes that the stuff that's in the library is wrong. So let me be fair. He thinks An-Nawawi, Ibn Hajar are all misguided. Right? But may Allah have mercy on them. They misunderstood the Aqidah. Oh my goodness, these guys is comical, right? They know. It ain't like they don't know. They know what they're doing. They just brought the Saudi stuff hook, line, and sink. It's not like they don't know. They have the books, right? It's not, listen, if you go in their, I can go in their libraries and do this, in their own libraries that they have. It's not like they don't got the books. I'll give you a story, right? One time I went to a masjid, right? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So a guy's teaching, Wahhabi guy, he's teaching in the masjid. He's teaching usul al-fiqh and ulum al-hadith, the science of hadith and the foundations of fiqh. Listen to this. This is all so-called Salafi Wahhabi people around, right? So I come to visit somebody because I'm like, we black, we brothers, we cool. I come to visit the person. And the guy teaching, I'm listening to him, And now, you know, when I come in the door, they're like, oh, here comes this innovator and blah, 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 and this deviant and, you know, all that nonsense, right? And I'm laughing because that's what you're looking at me. And the teacher is teaching, and they're like, the shake and bloom, 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 right? So when he finished, I'm listening, I'm watching. I said, yo, you got these books you're teaching. I said, can you tell me something? You're teaching two books, one in the science of hadith and one in the fundamental, foundational principles of al-fiqh, right? I said, the first book you're teaching, who's the author? Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar Asqalani. I said, what was his aqidah? His eyes got big. I said, wasn't he Ash'ari? Yes. I said, didn't he follow a madhab? Wasn't he Shafi? Yes. Wasn't he a Sufi? Yes. I said, why you didn't tell the people that? I said, the second book you're teaching in the foundational principles of al-fiqh, who wrote that book? Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni. I said, what was his aqidah? He was Ash'ari. What was his madhab? He was Shafi'i. And he was a Sufi. He's the sheikh of Imam al-Ghazali. Why you didn't tell him that? If you can read their books and teach their books, why are you hiding who they were? Because if it's good for you to look at them, then them people shouldn't have no problem with me, because that's where I get my knowledge from. You should have saw his face, right? So they know. They know. It's not like they don't know. They know. You can't make this stuff up. Oh, absolutely not. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is on one side of the fence, and Uthman Dan Fodio, the Shehu, is on a whole nother side. And I'm going to show you that too, right? This is going to be really fun when we talk about Uthman, the Shehu, Uthman Dan Fodio. Oh, that's going to be really nice, because I'm going to bring the genius with me when we do this one. And we're going to do all this through chains of narration, because I'm going to teach you something. Okay, we reached the bottom, I think. Wow. We done? Yeah, we reached the bottom. Okay, that's it. All right. But I think what happens is those guys, they went to Saudi Arabia, they got a free education. And I don't think a lot of it was that's what they intended. And they still don't know. They don't read them books because they get a bunch of pamphlets and cliff notes. They don't really teach them. They don't. They got a blueprint. And any of them who really start researching and really studying, they leave that stuff. They won't stay there. Right? Right? If they start studying and they research, they're going to reject all that stuff, because it's really like saying all the Muslims were misguided. And then when you just start adding it up, you do the verses, it don't make sense. It don't, right? When you know. But when you don't know, it can sell you anything, you know? And that's the issue. All right, let's bring this to a close. We way over time. May Allah reward you all. Barakallahu bikum. Today's Monday. So tonight, discussing our deen with Sheikh Walid and myself. That is at what time? 8 o'clock, I think. It's 8 p.m. inshallah. So we'll see you tonight at 8 p.m. And here's what I said. I want to disclose with this. Don't just listen to me. Go do your research. I gave you a lot of stuff. Go research. Don't just take my word for it. Actually go do the research, right? Don't just take my word. You got a lot of information, but don't go on the side stuff. Get the point. We started with Al-Hafiz Abdullah ibn Salam al-Basri. We talked about Mecca. We talked about his knowledge in hadith. Go check. We talk about his creed. Don't just say Imam Amin said it. Go look, right? Do some research. Let me give you one that you can follow. So no one from among the Wahhabiyya scholars are really learning. I never said that. They are learning people. They know what they're doing contradicts the majority of the Muslim nation, and they still teach it. Yes, they are aware that what we're saying, the majority of the Muslim nation, past and present, didn't accept this stuff, right? We know that. They know that. But what they say is they were all idol worshippers and kuffar, and they were wrong. So that if you talk to a real Wahhabi, he's not going to beat around the bush. He ain't playing games with you. You kafir, mushrik, misguided and misguiding. That's what they feel. I mean, you're listening to, as our brothers from the D say, you're listening to Wahhabi light, diet Wahhabi. Real Wahhabi, pure Wahhabi, ain't gonna play games with you. You a mushrik, kafir, a real Wahhabi. You ever been to Mecca and Medina? You go to Medina, go try to make dua at the Prophet's grave and see what they do to you, or see how they treat you. Why do you think they push you away from the Prophet's grave? Just because it's crowded? When you go to try to make dua, or at the grave of the Prophet, so why do you think that guy pushing you? Because it's crowded? No, because to him, you're an idol worshiper. You worship the Prophet. So, I mean, that's reality. They know, but they have an agenda to do something else. That's it. It's not like they don't know. Now, we might not know that, but they do. They're very aware of what they're doing. That's just the way it is. I mean, that's just real. Now, your job is to determine is that right or wrong. But that's what it is, right? But I think my concern is a greater concern, especially when it comes to us. I'm talking about from my side of it, that we can't do nothing about the political situation in the world, right? It is what it is, right? But what we can do something, we can do something on our local level with our people, right? We can do that. And educating, that's it. And I don't mind like sitting down and actually discussing these issues, not arguing, not trying to prove who's smarter, just research, fact finding, right? It's good for us. You know what I mean? It don't serve us to just fight and argue. That doesn't help. Doesn't change anything. But if we educate ourselves and we learn and we research and we fact find, that will help us, right? And some people will remain as they are, and some people will benefit and learn and change or develop. You can't save the world. Don't even think like that, because that's not real. The Prophet ﷺ couldn't save the world. So what makes you think you're going to do it? But you can educate some people. And that's it. You can educate some people. Tayyib, assalamu alaikum. May Allah reward y'all all. Barakallahu bikum. Please review the videos so you can get the information and do your work. That's a part of your homework. I already gave you a step. You still got more to go. We got to go around the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.